Hello and welcome to the CT Sports Report. My name is Cody Teague, here with my partner in crime as always, Chris Calicut. Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
Cody, as you may can imagine, I've been better. I've been better. Valiant effort from my boys last night. Unfortunately, came up one beautiful final play short.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a great game last night coming down to the wire. Neither one of my predictions happened in terms of how that game would finish, but we'll talk a little bit more, not too much in depth, but a little bit more in depth here in just a moment. But Chris, go ahead and lead us to America's favorite segment.
Pop Tops. But before that, we remind the folks that Pop Tops is sponsored by 2H Brewing. We have to remind the folks that we have a Twitter handle that we've been extremely active on this past weekend. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you can find us on Twitter at CT underscore sports report on the Twitter, CT Sports Report on Facebook as well. As mentioned earlier, Pop Tops always sponsored by 2H Brewing, the Teague and Harris and Howard. Lots of H's and T's and 2's going on there in their home brew little deal. So they keep that rolling. Anything new on the taps here lately, Cody?
Let's see. We do have a 15-minute IPA that we are rolling out this weekend and also bottling our West Coast style Pale Ale with orange pills rolling out in another couple weeks. Those are going to be fantastic.
I got you. Sounds delightful there. But as we roll into the Pop Tops, we like to remind everybody that our favorite golf tournament of the year, the Masters. I was waiting on the Jim Nantz. I was waiting on it. Didn't get it.
Hello, friends.
There we go. Okay. And as always, he was calling the college national championship as well. But Augusta National, one of the most gorgeous places on earth, is home to the Masters this week. Any quick predictions just right off the cuff, Cody?
Tiger will not place.
Oh, God.
I don't know. There's so many good people that perform. Spieth is up there. McIlroy, he's just been training like a maniac. Bubba Watson is always just a deadly player on the course. I think it'll probably, if I had to pick somebody, I think it would be out of those three I just mentioned. And then I think my wild card to win, who I feel like he's just due for something big, would be Ricky Fowler.
Yeah, I think those are all smart choices. I'm going to go with the fellow lefty, Bubba, once again to make his to get his third green jacket. And we'll see what he has for Augusta National this week, and that gets kicked off on Thursday. A couple little side notes there. Arnold Palmer, Mr. Arnie, will not be hitting his ceremonial tee shot this year for the first time in several years. He said his just not up to par anymore, that he's going to be at the ceremony and let Jack Nicklaus and Gary Player hit theirs as always. But he will not be taking the ceremonial first tee shot this time. And moving over to soccer now. Quick, sorry, by the way. The Masters, for those of you like myself who have invested in a brand new 4K technology television, the Masters will be broadcast in 4K definition this year instead of just the regular 1080 HD. So very crisp, every blade of grass, all the azaleas in full bloom on your television. So moving over to soccer, Abby Wambach recently retired of the U.S. women's team for many, many years. Just recently received a DWI and apparently has pled not guilty. What do you have on that for us, Cody?
Well, I guess my concern is not really as much for Abby Wambach, but it came at possibly the worst time that it could have for women's soccer when they are going through the money talks with the U.S. Soccer Federation to up their pay and to get paid like the men, and they probably should. They win more. So, I mean, I think that's going to hurt that argument, and that's my main concern. It also was not very nice of Bedoya and Altidore attacking her on Twitter after they started subtweeting Fox after they announced it. So I don't feel too good about what's going to happen in terms of the money talks, but it's just an unfortunate thing, and because she's so far high up with Americans and all that stuff. So I mean, it sucks. I think she's an idiot, but we all have our ups and downs, and she just hit a down part.
Yeah, that's for sure. It doesn't look great, even though she's technically not a part of the team anymore. But it still rubs off in that direction because of her past with the team. And, you have to think that hopefully this was a one-time deal and not an ongoing issue for her. So, best of luck in that. But hopefully she, admits it was a bad decision. We move on. And in regards to the money situation, I think the gradient right about 4.5 times more that the men get paid than the women right now. So the discrepancy, and as you said, the women have brought home a lot more gold here lately. So, their argument is there to get at least closer, if not equal, pay in that position. So a little short edition of the Pop Tops for you. To the task at hand, last night, the NCAA Basketball Men's Championships, Villanova versus North Carolina.
Yeah, somehow Chris has made it, and he's not dead today. God bless him. But it was just a crazy first of all, it was an awful game. It's just the action kept everybody into it. Let's be real. The refs couldn't make their decisions on whether they wanted to be there, if they were there. It was tough to watch. But that being said, we have a new champion, Villanova, their second national championship, their first, their only one since '85 when they had the remarkable game against Georgetown. So that's where we're at. I mean, it's fun. We should have had the too early rankings for next season, Chris, which is topped by your rival Duke so far.
Yep. North Carolina comes in at number 6. I did get that notification today.
Yeah. But I know Chris was back and forth between Raw and the national championship, but let's just talk how we got here real quick, because there's not much to say in terms of the semifinals. Both of those were blowouts. Villanova waxed Oklahoma. North Carolina, a little bit more of a closer game against Syracuse, but it led to a great match. Last night, all the Nova players were there to play, it felt like to me, where only a few of the Tar Heel players actually showed up. Arcidiacono?
No, here we go. Arcidiacono.
Arcidiacono. Thank you. He did a great job running the point for them, finding the open players. He started off hot from behind the arc as well. But of course, and if he hadn't had 2 early fouls in the first half and set out for 10 to 12 minutes, Chris Jenkins, the forward from Villanova, I feel like this game would have got out of hand early, and Carolina would have never gotten back in it and never had a shot if he hadn't gotten foul trouble.
Look right there. Let's go to the referees for a moment. And I expressed complete and utter neutrality on this last night on Facebook. These referees are absolute garbage for both teams. Because like you said, the inconsistency was absolutely mind-blowing. The first 5 minutes of the game, there was hardly any whistles. Then they tightened it up a bit. And then at one point, they called 8 straight fouls on North Carolina. 8 straight with no Villanova fouls in between. Now, usually I would be in an uproar on that, and I might be a little bit, but, the referees just were not consistent. Traveling was not called on a consistent basis. They would go from a hand check or a hip check being a foul to you had to murder somebody. There really was no in between. It was very, very odd the way this game was officiated. So put last night, I guess this was their national championship too. Do you think you can agree with that?
I do. They tried to play more of a part in the game than a referee should ever play. It was just really sad to see. You're right. I mean, you could have walked from one end of the court to the other and not been called for a travel. It was just absolutely insane, at least in terms of that not being called. And then when one was called, it was called on Jenkins on the post. And, I mean, it was a travel. But, everyone was in an uproar because you hadn't called this all day. Well, I'd be in an uproar too. But, what can you do? I guess, looking forward for the local team here. After this game, Chris, 2 big players not coming back, 3 players not coming back for sure that were in the rotation. And that just makes me want to touch on Marcus Page. Dude is a class act. It is ridiculous the poise and composure that he had to get on the podium and speak about the loss and the other team and his teammates and such like that. And it got me thinking, and I probably should run this stuff by you before I say it, but it got me thinking, everyone was talking about how Cam Newton acted back after he lost the Super Bowl. He's 8 years older than this kid, and he's doing just fine. I'm just making a point there in terms of no matter how old you are or how much money you have, you can act like a professional like Marcus Page did.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think Cam Newton's quite 30 yet, but anyways, that beside the point, Page and the entire team, the entire team in general, talking about the Carolina Tar Heels, of course, acted with absolute class from Roy to Marcus on down the line in that extremely, stressful, sad, all sorts of emotion situation. And, my favorite from Marcus saying, unfortunately, I have to take this jersey off and I'll never get to put it back on. And, that those 4 years have absolutely been the best 4 years of his life. That just says a lot about him as a person and a lot about the Carolina basketball family as well.
Absolutely. And just running down, Carolina won the game at every single thing that you could talk about. Umpteen thousand rebounds to 2. The field goal percentages, Carolina lost in. They shot 43%. Villanova shot 58%. Most of that being padded in the second half by Villanova, who was hitting everything that they threw up inside the Energy Stadium to where Carolina could not hit water if they fell out of a boat when they came out in the second half. It was they were a completely different team than what was played in the first half.
Right. And Carolina has come out slow, which they kind of did at the beginning as well. Every beginning, and rightfully so, it's a national championship game. Then the action heated up. They were pretty good to close the first half, with the exception of the last possession, which gave Villanova a little bit of positivity going into the second half. And Villanova just kept rolling on that last second shot that they made in the first and really never looked back. They didn't have much of a cold stretch, whereas Carolina came out cold and then came on late. And unfortunately did not have quite enough for the Wildcats. But with that said, a point that we've been hearing all year about North Carolina is they lack toughness. They lack integrity. They lack fighting power when the moment is near. I think that they absolutely showed that fight tonight, that toughness, and Roy and the whole program can actually be really, really proud of that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And then two more quick things, Chris, before we move on to another major thing that happened in Texas. 2 things to touch on. 2 shots, actually. The first shot is the one that Marcus Page hit to tie the game.
I've never, quite possibly one of the toughest shots in a game situation I've ever seen made. That was a double clutch three from right at 23, 24 feet, and it barely touched the rim going down. That is just crazy. I mean, you saw the absolute joy. I didn't think it was going in. But he's just a clutch player. But unfortunately, as awesome and amazing and clutch as that was, Villanova had one better.
Yes, the second point before we end this topic of discussion, Chris Jenkins' shot. Perfectly squared up, got a clean look at the basket. Bryce Johnson was playing back. Carolina was down in the paint expecting to drive because they didn't need a three, but the three won the game for them. So it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't in terms of the defense that you played. Do you want to put your people out on the perimeter and expect them to drive the ball, or would you rather make them take the three-pointer, which they were pretty hot on the second half? Of course, Carolina took the latter, and, Jenkins applied the dagger through the heart of many people who bleed Carolina blue.
PG show.
Anyway, I can say that.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time, man.
Better than what I said 2 episodes ago.
Absolutely.
Luckily, no one watches
quick little
the show.
breaking news. Hey, we actually have 2 live viewers right now, so welcome everyone. Hello, friends, as Jim Nance would say.
Cheers.
So, exactly. So, a little breaking news just in from ESPN. Joel Berry, star guard, who is likely the future at North Carolina, suffered a foot injury in that game and has been seen on crutches today. So, hopefully, just a little short minor injury for him to roll next year. But going back to that last play, as you know, I'm a basketball connoisseur. I study the sport. I believe I'm at least halfway done some assistant coaching. I've done some officiating, yada, yada, yada. What Jay Wright drew up on that final play was absolute genius. A lot of coaches like to overthink the final play and set 14 screens just to get to one person. Well, they didn't do it. They only had about 4.5 seconds to work with, and they timed it absolutely perfectly. The Diacono came down and was the dribbler, Chris Jenkins as his trailer. Now, again, like you said, great point that they didn't need a three, but with the time constraints that they had, it actually worked better for them. So you had Diacono coming down there, Arcidiacono, I'm sorry, the full name there, came down, passed it right back to his trailer, Jenkins, basically screened, did the whole box out chicken wing thing, screened away any, and he just flat out nailed it. And what the funny part was, the camera angles that came out today, Jay Wright, Villanova coach, called the shot. He just called it. I can't remember, like you couldn't read his lips exactly. He either said bang, made, or something like that. But he called the shot.
I think he said got it. I think he said got it.
It's something along those lines. Either way, he called the shot, did not even share a bit of exuberance. He just kept even keel like a complete badass.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what he did. So
I'll say this in closing. Whoever was working the pyrotechnics and knew that the game was over, God bless that person. He was really close to never working in any sort of sporting event ever again.
No, that was really close. I didn't look at the tape. He actually let it out with like 0.5, 0.6 left. So it wasn't as close as some originally thought. But regardless, yeah, that kid, whoever it was, some intern, is really, really lucky today.
Absolutely. All right, Chris, let's move on to the other big sporting event in Texas, WrestleMania 32. That's right. If you were tuning into this show to hear us talk about actual sports instead of sports entertainment, not tonight, not this show. Just stay with us. Whoa. Look, because it's on Sports Center.
All right, I'll give you that. It is sports entertainment, but a lot of people do declare it still to be a sport of some semblance. The week started off, we did a little preview last week, but the week started off with NXT TakeOver Dallas, which was by far the better of the two shows on the weekend in Texas. The card had Austin Aries, former TNA star, go over Baron Corbin. We'll have more about Corbin here in just a few minutes. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, and what was Sami Zayn's likely, finale type match for NXT, as he'll be on the permanent spot in the main roster. Let me say, it was not Shinsuke Nakamura's work before he came up to NXT, and that dude made me a fan from the get-go. His theme is awesome. His moveset is fantastic. He just oozes charisma and doesn't even need to speak a lick of English to be a winner with the fans. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in the future. One of the best matches, probably the best overall match of the weekend, and really, I think, match of the year candidate moving forward. American Alpha, Jason Jordan, Chad Gable defeated the Revival to become the new NXT Tag Team Champions. Not quite as great of a match as I thought it was going to be. I thought this one might steal the show, but regardless, it was a great match nonetheless. There's number one for the day, Cody.
And it wasn't by me. It wasn't by me.
No, it was not. It was not. But they defeated the Revival for the Tag Team Championships. Then for the Ladies Championship, the Women's Championship, you had Asuka, another Japanese superstar, defeat Bayley. The ending was a little... I don't know. I didn't love the ending. They basically had Asuka choke Bayley out. Bayley did not tap or get pinned. I guess that was their thing, that they didn't want her to actually give up the championship, so they had Asuka choke her out. They on, and Asuka is your new women's champion. Finn Balor, the Demon, defeated Samoa Joe to retain his NXT championship. Finn Balor is like the staple of NXT right now, especially on these live events, the takeover events where he does full face paint and everything like that. Demon-esque character with a fantastic sort of Undertaker type entrance. This is going to be one of the cooler entrances whenever he gets called up to the main roster, if they let him do it. And then you have Samoa Joe, who actually got cut open at the very beginning of the match by a headbutt from Balor, and they had to bring the cut guys out there to stop the bleeding several times. Kind of interrupted the flow of the match, but also, kept a little extra drama. It added a little extra substance to the match as well. So that was your NXT Dallas card. Cody, did you get a chance to take a little bit of a look at NXT yet?
I have not. I was too busy trying to keep up with the big stuff, so I sounded knowledgeable on that. But, of course, you bring me down a peg, and I don't much appreciate it. But, I'm here to talk about the stuff that matters. Even though NXT seems to matter more than the big show, at least with a bunch of chants that you've heard in the past WrestleMania and in Raw last night.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get to those but we had WrestleMania Sunday night, and it was long and drug out. You had 7 hours of wrestling, thereabouts, from 5 to almost midnight. The reason that the pre-show didn't really get started till almost 6 o'clock is AT&T Stadium had Wi-Fi issues. Their ticket scanners would not work to let people in the building. So the first pre-show match that went on about 5:45, there was probably only 10, 20,000 people in the stands. I almost felt bad. It was kind of rough. But the first show, or the first match you had, was Kalisto versus Ryback for the U.S. title. Kalisto retained in a nothing special type match. Any thoughts on that? Did you get a chance to watch the pre-show, Cody?
Yeah, over the span of 3 days, I finally watched everything. It took me that long, but yeah, I watched the pre-show. That was just one of your good, steady wrestling matches that you have to start the show. Nothing special, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, good performance by both people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it definitely helps out Kalisto because he beats a big guy in Ryback. I actually think it hurt Ryback, brought him back down a couple pegs. We'll see what they do with him in the future. Then you had what I thought was the surprise of the night, honestly, was the 10 Divas tag match. The Blondes and Bad or whatever it was versus Team Total Divas. This was actually the send-off match for Brie Bella, who absolutely beautiful yes lock. And even her husband, Daniel Bryan, who made that move famous, said, "Oh, by the way, Brie just did a better yes lock than me." And it was like she got the win for her team. They teased a little tension among a few of the ladies, so they have stuff to work with. But honestly, there were no major botches. Everybody hit their spots. It was a very clean, very exciting match. So I was actually really, really surprised with those girls.
Yeah, and I like what, and of course this will be touched on later too, but I like what the WWE is trying to do with women's wrestling moving forward. I feel like at least with this match, in terms of seeing actual moves instead of it just being a sideshow spectacle for men, I feel like that was a good match to start the night and to get them warmed up for the match that happened later.
Yeah, definitely. And on the pre-show, before we get to the last match, you had WWE Hall of Famer Lita out to make a special announcement. And her special announcement was the new unveiling of a new championship. No more Divas Butterfly belt, ladies and gentlemen. And that makes me extremely, extremely happy. So the belt is absolutely gorgeous. It's basically a replica of the men's belt with a red background and a white strap rather than a black strap as well. So absolutely beautiful belt, feminine enough but still very strong. And now they are being declared superstars rather than divas on WWE television, which is very good as well. The last match we saw on the pre-show put the Dudley Boys versus the Usos. In what I thought should have been a tables match. It was not. It was a standard tag match. I think they got cut short because they were the last match on the pre-show. They had to get everything ready for the main card. Match didn't have a whole lot of flow to it. Very basic tag match in which the Usos got the win and put the Dudleys through the table. So that leads us to our main card. Any Dudleys and Usos before we keep rolling, Mr. Teague?
I don't think so, man. I think we're good to go there. I mean, I like the Usos. I like the Dudleys. I feel like they could do more with them, but I don't make the card. So,
yeah, I mean that's the thing right now is that was kind of a throwaway match. It's just something for somebody to do. But as we move to the main card, this is where business picked up a little bit, as JR would say. The ladder match kicked off the show for the Intercontinental title. Kevin Owens came in as your champion. What threw me off is just by chance I started looking at the betting lines for this event, and Zack Ryder was the betting favorite going into this. I was like, somebody knows something I don't know. And lo and behold, after several fantastic ladder spots from all guys involved, they worked their behinds off, all of them did. Zack Ryder was your new Intercontinental Champion for the first time, in addition to his U.S. title reign about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think he may have had a tag championship as well several years ago as part of the Edgeheads when he was one of Edge's lackeys back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I like Zack Ryder. I like what he brings to the table in terms of his performance. He's a great performer. I don't like his gimmick, but I mean, this was good for him, and this was, in my opinion, one of the best matches of the night in terms of pure entertainment.
Sure, and then you have Zack, who has been buried essentially, come up out of nowhere to win the championship. Feel good WrestleMania moment because his last WrestleMania was 4 years ago when he got kicked in the family jewels by his then on-screen girlfriend, Eve. So now he has a new WrestleMania moment, so good for him. That changed a little bit on Raw, but we'll get to that in a minute. The next match is AJ Styles versus Chris Jericho. Pun intended here, phenomenal wrestling match. started a little slow for my liking, especially with these two guys, but I think they gave them a lot of time on purpose to, go out and actually be the wrestling match on the card, because Lord knows most of the rest of it did not do a whole lot of that. But this was the best overall pure wrestling match on the event. And surprisingly, Y2J himself actually got the win that night.
Yeah, I'm surprised, especially with like I think me and you talked about earlier about what their future plans are for AJ Styles, bringing him in from TNA and such. But Jericho's always that person who's going to be there to make somebody and help put them over. And I believe that's kind of what this match was, even though Jericho won. To me, this was the match that I was most excited about, and I think me and you have a difference in opinion. This match was very lackluster to me. At least to me, I felt like AJ was really out of shape, missing. I know this might have been like the first time him and Jericho really worked together in the ring, especially on an event of this magnitude. But to me, I didn't see AJ hitting the spots like I thought they should have been hit. It was a lackluster match to me, Chris. So me and you are very different.
Well, I'll agree with you on this, that it was not the cleanest match that they've ever had. Definitely. There was a couple of spots that were a little glitchy, a little rusty. And I think Jericho than it is Styles, because God knows Jericho is in his mid-40s at this point, and Styles is no spring chicken. I think he's in his late 30s right now. So two guys that have been around the world who are both talented as all get out had a pretty good match. Really thought they would give AJ the win here, but surprisingly, Jericho got the win because basically he's been putting everybody and their brother over at WrestleMania, including Gold several years ago now. So that's a little redemption song for Jericho. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, with me talking about it being lackluster in their ages and stuff like that, I think it was WrestleMania 29, 30, either the big one or the one before it, when Cena and The Rock fought each other. That match was awful. Now, I know The Rock got hurt, but, you're going to put big names out there and try to turn them over, at least make it worth me watching, because the rest of the WrestleMania was kind of rough.
Yeah, I think they were 30 or 20. They did it twice. Were that great, but beside the point, the next match we had up was the New Day versus the League of Nations. Another surprising result here. The match was nothing special in and of itself, just sort of your basic 3-on-3 there for a few minutes. The League of Nations, the heels, won this one and won it pretty cleanly, actually. And then it led up to a wonderful surprise, which was probably one of the most entertaining parts of the night. You had Hall of Famers and legends come out, none other than Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels, and Mick Foley in whichever character he was in. He's got 4 or 5 different characters that he's used back in the day. So, but seeing these guys, you had the return of Mr. Sacco, you had Sweet Chin Music, and best of all, you had the Stone Cold Stunner. Lots of fun in here. What did you think of this segment, Cody?
I like the bit that everything came out, because Shawn Michaels, the crowd's favorite. He's always going to come in there. He's going to put butts in seats. He's going to make the older generation go crazy, because that's who you knew wrestling was. Yeah, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, bang, bang, man. He's always someone who is probably one of the best entertainers and one of the biggest risk takers in the WWE, in my opinion. And then you had the hometown hero, who I bet you could not even measure the decimals that place was at when the glass shattered. Of course, Austin being my favorite wrestler, I do like everything that they did there. It's funny because I was listening to an interview with him, how he's talking about this show is becoming a lot more family friendly. And what did they do after the whole bit was over, Chris?
They drank beer.
They drank a lot of beer. Now,
what was funny though? What was funny is Shawn Michaels, has turned over a slightly new leaf these days. than he did back in the Attitude Era. And the producers in the corner were telling him to drink it, and he's like, "Guys, I don't drink anymore."
But
But
I saw that.
he took a couple forceful swigs to make the WWE happy, and he's did an ugly face like, "Oh, I forgot how bad that tasted," and all that fun stuff. It's a little segment post-match there. My favorite part of the whole segment were the sell jobs by Rusev and Xavier Woods on the stunners. They jumped about 10 feet in the – they were so good.
Those I mean,
so good.
It was just so good for me because I know me and you grew up mostly watching the Attitude Era when all this stuff was going on, and you knew how good a wrestler was by how well they sold a person's finisher. Austin's, you had to sell it. It's a simple move, so it had to be sold. And
correct.
It was awesome. Every person he put a stunner on, I feel like sold it to the max. Rusev was my favorite because I was actually listening to Austin's podcast, and he was talking about how he wanted to work with Rusev, so I thought that was funny. But that was a huge – I just thought that was a great moment, especially getting those kids in there like the New Day and the people who would never wrestle with these guys, getting them a little notoriety with them. I thought that was great.
Definitely. Most of those guys, people are going to say, well, they buried him. No, I'm in difference of opinion there. I think they actually gave him the old legendary rub, as you would say, and it gave him a little notoriety just by them being in the same ring. So, good stuff there. Next match was my most disappointing match that I was looking forward to on the card, and that was Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar in a no-holds-barred street fight in what was essentially a very tame, no DQ match with a lot of suplexes.
Yeah, this match was awful. Touching on the Mick Foley point I just made in terms of how he would do just crazy, insane things. I was hoping that would happen with Ambrose since Foley was kind of his mentor in a few segments. But it never panned out. Everything, you're right, stayed at the ring. The ramp, nothing was used. It was just an awful match. I like Ambrose's gimmick. I wish they would make him more. I like what he has to do in terms of the crazy person. I just don't like Brock. I don't like Brock's aspect of everything, but he puts the butts in seats, as they say. So that's why he's there. But this was a highly anticipated match, as you said, and it just, man, it rubbed me the wrong way, Chris.
Yeah, this match did not deliver to me either. You had just the go-home Raw the week before. You had Ambrose's little red wagon full of toys, and he didn't really use any of them. I mean, yeah, they were there. It would have been cool to see him roll the wagon down the ramp with him. That would have been an added element of surprise, and, that would have left the weapons open for use. But basically, Lesnar threw him around like a rag doll for 10 minutes. Ambrose got a good kendo stick and chair shot in. Me is they had Ambrose go for the 1-2-3 after only one F5, just one, like no kick out of anything, just one F5 put Ambrose away. And to me, it should not have been that much of a squash.
Yeah, I mean, again, this match could have had a lot more to it. I don't know, and we might have touched on this before, Chris, but in terms of Lesnar's injury that he had that caused him to not be in the UFC anymore, in terms of how daredevilish he can really be, does that play a part in things that we have going on in terms of him not being able to perform like the fans want him to?
I think it's more him not wanting to and him wanting to cash the paycheck more than he wants to perform. He did his job, and that's to go in there and kick butt on a physical standpoint. I don't think Brock wanted to play with the toys very much, to be perfectly honest. He took a couple of chair shots here and there, but honestly, I think he was trying to get out. He went in, he done his job, he got his paycheck, he's going home. And from what I've read, that was his last date for quite a while. So you probably will not see Brock Lesnar on WWE television for several weeks, if not several months, maybe leading up to SummerSlam would be my next guess.
That's fine with me. He doesn't do anything for me. I wish they put Heyman with somebody else and let Heyman put somebody over the top. But hey, I don't make the bookings.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm with you there. I mean, I'm sure Dean Ambrose probably had several ideas for this match that he didn't get to do, but unfortunately Dean Ambrose doesn't book the show. So, that's how that one rolling. But the next match, and I might have all these discombobulated, but you have storyline-wise one of the most anticipated and mysterious matches on the card, and that's Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker. We all predicted that Shane would do something stupid, and he did a couple stupid things, but all for the shock and all factor and all for the crowd and, all for the storyline. I thought there would be interference here. There was not one bit of interference at all in the entire match. None of the McMahons, Triple H, Stephanie, Vince, any of the big names that might side with one or the other, like John Cena, who came out later, interfered. So they just let these two have an MMA type style fight. It was not a wrestling match. It was more of a MMA fight. Lots of strikes, lots of kicks, a couple of suplexes here and there, but a couple of big spots in the match. Shane rigged one of the panels in the cell, and they ended up going out of the cell and onto the table, and Shane almost hit his head on one of the announce tables that it was going to lean up against.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. You might have to remind me what part of the show that was in. That match had me on edge, and I was already upset that this Mexican announce table was not the first to go. It was the German announce table. So first of all, that had me in a tizzy. But go ahead. I'm here, man. I'm listening. But I'm trying to think of which part you were talking about.
You're good, man. A funny thing on Twitter that I saw, how they took the Berlin Wall down, and it was the German announce table. They said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and that one was Mr. McMahon, tear down this announce table. So I thought that was a cute little history lesson on Twitter the other night. But the main spot in this match was the expected one. Shane McMahon climbs to the top of the cage, over 20 feet high. He does his Hail Marys, his Catholic, please, Lord, don't let me die, and jumps and actually misses Undertaker. Undertaker gets off of the announce table, which was the standard, regular WWE announce table, which I think was actually gimmicked or rigged, as they would say. I thought I saw it bounce up a little bit. I think they had that one padded and disguised a little bit, which is extremely smart because 20 years ago they wouldn't have done that. But a little more safe than it was, I think they did gimmick the table a little bit, was some sort of padding underneath.
Yeah, I think they did too. You saw it blow out when Shane hit the table. But you still can't – that's 20 feet in the air. You're coming down, landing flat on your back. That cushion's kind of like what they put in between the barriers of the wall and NASCAR when they hit. I mean, that's exactly what it looked like when he landed. I have someone I work with who told me about this, but the reason that Shane O'Mac always does these big things is because the wrestlers will never do anything that they wouldn't do. So not that it's going to bring back more high flying and crazy things happening. This at least shows that, hey, I'm part owner of this company. I'm going to put my body on the line. We expect you to do the same thing to get paid. And I think that was the big point for me in this match. But patent or not, that's stupid. This is absolutely stupid.
Oh, it was absolutely stupid. Total agreement there. A cool moment before the match, and you really had this to solidify that something crazy was going to happen, is Shane's kids came out with him on the entrance ramp, which was a cool little moment for his whole family. And then he went over to give them to Grandma, Linda McMahon, before the match. But, yeah, that was a cool moment. And then, the whole top of the sell spot tried to sell the story because, of course, the stipulation being if Shane wins, he would gain control of Monday Night Raw. and it would be Undertaker's last WrestleMania. So, he pulled out all the stops to get that win, to get his legacy, to get that prize. That was kind of the story behind it. It didn't translate as well as I thought it might have, but pretty decent match, good drama nonetheless. Dang it, son of a gun. Number 2, nonetheless, on the evening, I actually did it. Gosh. Anyways, result, Undertaker wins the match clean as a sheet. 1, 2, 3 with the pile driver and the rest in peace. So, supposedly that was going to mean Shane goes bye-bye. Undertaker gets to hang around. Had a little wrinkle on Raw. We'll follow up with that in just a second. The next one, which I think was probably the second best match of the night, or even I think stole the show, was the Women's Championship. Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte, who was your champion, Divas champion. Cody, what'd you think of this match right offhand before I get into it too much?
Yeah, I thought it was a good match, Chris. I like their performances. These women, especially these 3, in terms of one, how strong Charlotte is. Who she's just a beast in the ring. She's bigger than anybody else in there. Except for I believe Natalya, who wasn't in the match, but the Hart Girl.
She's pretty strong as well. And then you got Tamina Snuka, Jimmy Superfly Snuka's daughter, who was pretty big, but obviously was not in this match.
Right, and I guess my thing is, but just watching the 2 other girls, they're good performers. They are. I feel like they hit their spots well. Of course, hitting spots are a bit different for women because depending on their height, I feel like the ropes and the turnbuckles, they play a different game in that aspect. But I love all the finishers. I love their commitment to getting that Divas persona off. I mean, I think me and you both agree that's the worst thing that's ever happened to women's wrestling. But it was good to see. It was a great match between all 3 of them.
Oh, most definitely. All 3 girls put on a great show. It told a good story. You could tell that all 3 of them wanted that time. Of course, all outcomes are predetermined, but, all 3 of them conveyed that emotion to the crowd, and the crowd was actually really hot for this match all the way through. But, of course, the X factor in this match being Ric Flair, 2-time Hall of Famer. Charlotte had a submission locked in, and Sasha was trying to get back into the match, and Ric Flair grabbed her leg. Sasha could not get back and break up the hold. Becky still kind of women's champion, even though I would like to have seen Sasha. But with the direction they went on Raw with Sasha, I think they want to establish her a little bit more before they give.
Chris, are you still there, sir?
Yeah, man, I'm here. Sorry, I may have cut out just for a minute. So, based on the winner, who did you have? What do you think maybe moving forward?
In terms of the women's match?
Correct.
Yeah, in terms of the women's match, I do feel like, especially with what happened on Raw last night, I believe like they're going to have a really good storyline around Charlotte, which I look forward to seeing. I have a feeling it's going to be all of them against her, but I like what they're playing out here. I do agree. I wish Sasha would have won it. I feel like she's more of a face for the brand right now. I feel like the only reason Charlotte got it is because of her daddy, in terms of building up that legacy as well. But I think it'll be fun moving forward. I would have liked to see Sasha win it just for the pure entertainment aspect of how she puts on a show.
Yeah, I'm with you on. But good for the girls, good for in general. No more Divas nonsense with 2-minute matches and just slaps and kicks and, screeching yells. That's not women's wrestling. These girls put their heart and soul into it, and I'm glad to see sort of a new era ushered in for the girls on WWE. That led us to the Battle Royal. Andre the Giant, a few surprises. One guy that actually came in with sort of the jobbers, the non-important folks, were Tatanka. Did you see Tatanka out there, Cody?
I did. That was fun. They even gave him his little segment in the corner where he got real jacked up and did his thing. I thought that was fun to see.
Yeah, a couple other surprises you had was Shaquille O'Neal, of all people, and actually came in and did a pretty fun job. I was glad to see it.
Yeah, he's a future celebrity Hall of Famer in the WWE, if I do say so myself. He's wrestled, I believe, in WCW. He has guest hosted WWE Monday Night Raw, and then he showed up last night for his little bit there. So yeah, no, definitely. I feel like now that he's not doing much of anything, we might see more of Shaq, especially on the West Coast.
Oh goodness, I hope not. But with that being said, another surprise that I was really happy to see was it's DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. Wait for it. Bang! Sorry.
Bang.
Go ahead. So the Diamond Dallas Page, he came in, did a diamond cutter, was in fantastic shape. Of course, he has his own company with the DDP Yoga, which is really taking off. So very good inspirational speaker, great athlete. He's old now, but still in fantastic shape. Could probably go back and work a 20-minute match now if he wanted to. But we'll get to the winner of this Battle Royal, who came in with no entrance music, nothing. And that was NXT's Baron Corbin. Excuse me, Cody. He is about 6'7", 6'8", 260, big boy, or long hair, solid heel persona. Has been making strides in the ring and also on promos in NXT, getting a little older for development, 30, 31 years old, I think. But I think he has a pretty decent future ahead of him if they book him correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely got a good physique about him. I don't know too much about him, but the way he handled himself in the match definitely shows that there's hope. Definitely a fun match to watch. Again, there's a lot of NXT people they're going to get that next level up, and hopefully what the NXT is, depending on how much marketing they do and talking they do on the big show, the WWE has a bright future, and everyone just keeps showing that.
Yeah, and a lot of that depends on Vince McMahon, because honestly, WrestleMania was booked by Vince McMahon. A lot of the big stars, a lot of the winners, a lot of the finishes, very heel-esque, very celebrity-esque. That's definitely Vince McMahon-driven show, whereas Triple H is the main man in NXT. And I think once you see sort of the pass of the torch to Triple H on the main roster, as either Vince retires or unfortunately passes away, which might be when he retires, we'll see that more in the future. But moving along, we had a segment with The Rock came in to announce the new attendance record, which was actually a worked number or a fake number, 101,000 and some change. The real attendance, from what I'm being told, is somewhere around 97,000 and change. He came in to announce a record, which was a legitimate WrestleMania record. So, good for them on their ticket sales. If they finally let all those 97,000 in by the end of the show, good for them. But we had an interruption, the Wyatt family. What'd you think about this one, Cody?
I love Bray Wyatt. Okay. He's got the second best entrance after The Undertaker. I love his whole gimmick. I just absolutely love it. I do believe his brothers. Is it his brothers?
Mm-hmm.
Or as Rock?
I guess we're going to call him that.
Yeah, well, The Rock called him his incest family or something like that. So, but it was I really like their gimmick. I'm always hoping more for Bray Wyatt, but this to me took away from what I want him to be. I mean, The Rock, he shows up one time a year. I hate it. Love him as a person in terms of everything he does, in terms of entertaining us, but in terms of the wrestling aspect, I can't stand it. I didn't like the little segment, but of course, it closed out with another big name person who was not meant to be there, Chris.
No, that's true. Quick note on The Rock. He came out once the Wyatts came out and interrupted. The Rock challenged the Wyatt family to a match, and he got none other than Eric Rowan and beat him promptly with a rock bottom in a new WrestleMania record of 6 seconds. So, I mean, once Rock came out, I saw that he had wrestling boots on. I saw that he had knee pads on. I'm like, something's going to happen. Just don't know what. That was the end result. So he gets his name in the history book. Like he needs another one personally, but but that's what they gave him this time, along with his probably $2 or $3 million to come out for a 15-minute segment. But when the Wyatts came up to Rowan's defense, you had the return of none other than John Cena, who is not really back in a full-time capacity from what I'm being told. This is a one-off segment until probably late spring, early summer, when he'll return full-time. So I was not expecting the Super Friends to get back together, but doggone it, they did.
I like that. Yeah. The only thing with Cena is out of the last 4 movies I've watched, he's been in 3 of them. So even though I'm not watching wrestling as much, I still see him everywhere I go. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous how much that man is on television.
Yeah, he is on the next pathway to The Rock. I don't think he's never going to be as successful as The Rock in Hollywood. But, he's got some good guest spots on movies and played some somewhat primary roles. So we'll see how that translates as he gets a little older and steps out of the ring. This brought us to the end of the evening, pitting Roman Reigns, your WWE Champion Challenger, versus the champion, Triple H at the time. Triple H had one of the creepiest introduction videos I have ever seen. And then Stephanie came out with the skull princess mask and the full garb of like a Greek goddess and stuff like that. It's got to be somewhere in Triple H's contract that he gets the coolest entrance on every single show that he's on.
Well, I mean, here's my thing. Stephanie McMahon is still just stunning to me. There's no, I don't know why. But I guess my thing is when they first put that thing with the people and their metal over their mouth or whatever, I thought it was the cover of Disturbed, the band. I thought it was the cover. I thought it was the cover of their CD. That's exactly what I thought it was. No. I think you say he has to have the best entrance. I say his last 2 entrances have been completely absurd and make no sense to me. I mean, they do, but I think it's dumb. But yeah.
Oh, sure. I didn't say the best in general, but let me put a more extravagant. Is that better terminology there?
Sounds good. I appreciate you rephrasing that for me.
Yeah, the editing is real here. But as far as the match goes, 2003, and I think I may have cut out there, but this is typical slow play match that Triple H is known for. The match never really picked up until the very end. Roman Reigns accidentally speared Stephanie, which to me it would have got a lot more heat on him if he would have, himself instead of accidentally doing it. But nonetheless, number 3. Reigns wins. Shut up. The Reigns wins the match. Clean as a sheet, no real interference besides Stephanie. In what was a very lackluster ending to the show, you had your confetti, your fireworks, Roman standing with his title in front of the WrestleMania sign, and you thought, okay, WWE, once he was standing there with the title, you thought, hey, WWE, this is going to be our new face of the company. And thankfully, the next night on Raw, he came out with a little different persona. So we'll see how this goes. I'll talk a little bit more about that as time moves along. But that's your WrestleMania weekend coverage.
It was it. It was crazy. I'm glad I'm finally back on the train of WWE because Chris has been so nice to help us get tickets to the live show in Greensboro for WWE Monday Night Raw coming up in May. So I need to make sure I'm on my game and get my fiance on her game so we can keep up with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a fun show, a little triple date night for that one. That'll be fun. So the girls can hopefully see Randy Orton by that time or something like that, and we'll be fine with whatever else goes on. But, with that said, I actually have some fun stuff going on this week in relation to WWE and NXT in particular. I'll be at the Cabarrus Arena in Concord with the NXT Live, so I'm looking forward to seeing most of the guys and gals that we mentioned in the NXT section of the program. A really fun night. Got good seats. Unfortunately, expensive seats, but good seats. So we'll definitely have fun. And hopefully I'll get a live report into our friends over at Wrestling Inc., Sean Rossap, Raj Giri. All those guys do a fantastic job over there. So be on the lookout for me sending out leaks for a little write-up that I'll do for that event.
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely follow Chris in terms of that of this NXT stuff. He's very knowledgeable, a lot more knowledgeable than me, even though I like to think that I am. Even though I totally lapsed on the moment you're talking about in the Shane O'Mac Undertaker match. I'm still kicking myself for that. But at least I was there for the bump from 20 feet high. But, yeah, and then just make sure you continue to follow us at every single kind of social media possible, even though we only have two. Facebook, CT Sports Report, and then follow us on the Twitter at the CT _. Can't do this when we're not together. It sucks. Anyway, CT _Sports Report. We're done with basketball, but definitely keep up with us. Once the playoffs start, we'll start covering the Hornets a little more because, hey, guess what? They'll be on TV here. It's fantastic.
Hey!
I know. Just remember, the Hornets have locked a spot. They locked it when the Bulls lost the other night last week. So we've at least clinched, I believe, 4 or a 5 spot, depending on how we round out the rest of the year. It's fantastic.
Definitely. And baseball is getting into full swing, so we'll sort of move our coverage that way as well. Our Atlanta Braves choked away their opening game last night. In the top of the ninth, blew a save up 3-2. I was unable to watch the absolute ending, but I did see them blow the save. So hopefully that's not a sign of things to come, but I'm afraid it's going to be.
Can I tell you a joke that Leslie made last night?
Sure.
So I told her that the Braves lost in extra innings.
Mm-hmm.
And her comment to me was like, right where they left off last year. I was like, my goodness. Ooh. My goodness. Yeah, that's what I have to live with from now on in the rest of my life.
Not untrue, however, not untrue.
It's true. I hate when she's right when she talks sports. It really upsets me.
We still need to get our ladies on the podcast at some point. But anyways, as Cody said, please continue to follow us on the Twitter at CT_Sports Report, CT Sports Report on Facebook, and on Google Hangouts here. We are CT Sports Report there as well. The links will be up on our social media sites. If you're listening to us on YouTube, thank you so much. We did have several viewers actually going in and out during our live podcast here. So thanks to everyone for listening. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us a few comments on the YouTube page as well. And Cody, why don't you wrap us up, my man? I had fun. I hope you did.
Absolutely. Had a great time. Turns out I still need to learn some more about wrestling. But, hey, let's wait till, the real sports, quote, unquote, sorry, Chris, start.
Oh, my God.
I'll catch back up and still be able to school you, son. All right, Chris, real quick, we hadn't done this in a while. What did you learn today?
I learned that you need to start watching NXT because if you think WWE is bad, you will then become a fan again.
All right, Chris, and you know what I learned?
What'd you learn?
You need better internet connection. All right.
No, I'm in complete agreement, and I'm going to blame my beautiful, lovely, talented wife because I'm pretty sure she's in there streaming a television show, and taking all of my bandwidth. So I apologize for that. You can blame.
That's why you got to get
Miss
the woman
Salita.
out the house when this happens. You get the woman out the house. That's what I always do. She never watches this. So I'm completely safe.
Exactly. Netflix is the devil. But again, thanks everybody for listening tonight. My name is Chris Calicut.
And my name is Cody Teague. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful rest of the night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.